of alcohol.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming. The topic I chose tonight is very personal to me, so that's why I chose it. Why do people abuse alcohol when they know the consequences? Given that the negative side effects of alcohol are common knowledge, people should be more careful with alcohol, yet they are not. People can be reckless and can allow themselves to become prisoner to a drink, letting the substance influence and control what they do. Alcohol should be consumed in small quantities at a time, used responsibly and biblically. The best way to prevent drunkenness and alcohol abuse is abstinence. That way the drink cannot control you because you are not consuming it. Although there are people who are responsible when it comes to alcohol, the risks and dangers of the use of alcohol may outweigh the positives or rewards provided by the drink. The use of alcohol dates back 5 millennia. Alcohol is listed as a depressant, and due to this, alcohol can be considered a drug. Alcohol also has major addictive qualities and should always be consumed in moderation. It is unclear when or where exactly alcohol was created, but there is proof that fermented beverages did exist in ancient civilizations such as Egypt. Mead or honey wine is thought to be the first alcoholic beverage created, an ancestor of all fermented beverages. It is made up of fermented honey and water, hence the name honey wine, and was created by the Greeks thousands of years ago. Honey wine is still extremely popular to this day. The American history of alcohol dates back centuries ago, when the first American settlers brought with them the knowledge of fermenting and distilling fruits and grains into alcoholic beverages. Alcohol was eventually banned and made illegal for over a decade in the USA, beginning in 1920 and finally ending in 1933. This ban became known as Prohibition in the United States. The 18th Amendment was created in order to prohibit the transportation, sale, and use of alcohol as an experiment to help reduce crime and corruption, solve social problems, reduce tax burdens created by prisons, and help improve the health and hygiene of Americans. Though this experiment eventually backfired, causing an increase in crime, the prison system was pushed to the max, and alcohol use dropped at first, but then began increasing once more. The only positive of this that did come was the government spending increased vastly. Then, when the Great Depression hit in 1929, the reopening of the alcohol industry became very appealing because it would create thousands of jobs for people around the country. Thus, the creation of the 21st Amendment, which repealed the effects of the 18th Amendment and allowed the alcohol industry to resume once more. The experiment of prohibition was evidently a failure in nearly every aspect, and this is probably why it didn't last too long. But America can look back on this as a learning experience to see what works and what doesn't work in U.S. law. There are many reasons for why people would engage in overdrinking, including depression, high stress, and family issues. The people who drink alcohol for these reasons use it as if it were a medication for the pain and hardships in their lives. These kinds of people are examples of how to drink irresponsibly and can also become great dangers to society. Drinking alcohol isn't inherently a bad thing, but when drinking to the point of drunkenness becomes a habit, a problem arises. Alcohol reduces inhibitions, also known as decision-making abilities. Decisions such as getting behind the wheel of a car while intoxicated, putting one's own life on the line, as well as those near him or her. Alcohol does relax the mind and body to some degree, reducing stress levels. Due to this, people do things when they are drunk that they would not normally do sober, because drinking can give them a sense of bravery that they do not typically have. People become addicted to alcohol because of neurotransmitters and a chemical known as dopamine. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter that helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers. The consumption of alcohol increases the release rate of dopamine, thereby inducing feelings of happiness and euphoria. The feelings of euphoria combined with the reduced anxiety due to alcohol consumption together create a false sense of security or perceived relief from depression in drinkers. That being said, dopamine is essentially the primary reason for addiction because it is a feel-good chemical that has an increased rate of release along with the consumption of alcohol. The addictive qualities of alcohol are extreme and are nothing to be taken lightly. Those who choose to participate in drinking alcohol should always be aware of the possible side effects at all times. There are positives and negatives that come along with the decision to use alcohol, just like most other decisions. One advantage of alcohol is a lowered risk of cardiovascular disease, which can occur with the consumption of small amounts of red wine. Alcohol can also lengthen your life, it can help prevent against the common cold, and people like the taste of the drink and the feeling it gives them when they consume it. However, if the drink is abused, these positives will not take place. In addition, the alcohol industry is one of the biggest industries in America. The U.S. beverage alcohol industry is a major contributor to the economy, responsible for over $475 billion in total U.S. economic activity in 2014, generating $110 billion in wages and nearly 4.6 million jobs for U.S. workers. This is arguably the greatest positive because it benefits Americans by boosting the U.S. economy. If used irresponsibly, alcohol can have dire consequences, both short and long term. The short-term consequences include drowsiness, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, impaired judgment, and upset stomach. When large quantities of alcohol are consumed over a long period of time, consequences can include liver disease, alcohol poisoning, nerve damage, sexual problems, ulcers, and in some cases, even permanent brain damage. The overuse of alcohol is also directly correlated to increased family problems, car crashes, and increased on-the-job injuries. Aside from the economic benefits of alcohol, the negatives vastly outweigh the positives. If everybody was responsible when it comes to alcohol, then there would be no issue. However, people aren't perfect. Everybody struggles, and anyone can turn a good thing into something horrific. Alcohol affects people locally and globally. In the Yuba Sutter area, in the first 10 months of 2017, there were roughly 1,300 car collisions, 104 of which were related to DUIs. 5 of those 104 collisions proved to be fatal. Drunk drivers had killed people in our community on 5 separate occasions, and the year wasn't even over yet. In California, the rate of residents over the age of 11 who were considered to suffer from an alcohol abuse or dependency in 2013 was slightly higher than the national average at 7.3% as compared to 6.7%. Approximately 2.3 million California residents per year between the years 2009 and 2013 battled alcohol use or dependence, and at an average of 7.5% of the population aged 12 or older. In 2006, excessive alcohol abuse cost California around $32 billion, 5th among states. These costs taken into account include lost workplace production, legal costs, criminal justice expenses, and healthcare costs. Nationally, there is an average of 1.5 million DUI arrests made each year, and an average of 10,075 people die each year due to drunk driving. According to a survey taken by JAMA Psychiatry, 1 in every 8 people in America struggles with alcohol, which totals almost 30 million adults. On a global scale, a whopping 240 million people are dependent on alcohol, and nearly 3.3 million people die from alcohol-related deaths annually. Alcohol is obviously not only a major issue in America, but also a global-wide trauma that has terrible ramifications. Alcohol not only has an effect on adults, but also has a huge effect on today's society, especially the present youth. Although drinking by persons ages under the age of 21 is illegal, people aged 12 to 20 years drink 11% of all alcohol consumed in the United States. Around 7.3 million people between the ages of 12 to 20 participate in drinking alcohol, nearly 20% of all people within this age group. A person who begins drinking as a young teen is 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than someone who waits until adulthood to participate in the use of alcohol. Nearly 80% of all high school graduates admit to consuming alcohol at least one time throughout their high school experience. These numbers are insanely high for people that aren't legally eligible to drink. More than 90% of all alcohol consumed by people from ages 12 to 20 is in the form of binge drinking. And on average, they drink more per occasion than the typical adult. In 2005, roughly 7,420 teenagers were either injured or died in DUI crashes, car crashes, and there's an average of 8 alcohol-related deaths each day. These statistics do not lie, and they show that alcohol in today's youth is an obvious issue that should concern everybody, especially teenagers. The Bible does not detest alcohol, nor does it promote its use. However, it does see drunkenness as a sin. Ephesians 5:18 says, "Don't be drunk with wine, because that will ruin your life. Instead, be filled with the Holy Spirit." This verse is proof that the responsible use of alcohol is a biblical requirement. Proverbs 21 says, "Wine is a mocker and beer a brawler. Whoever is led astray by them is not wise." This verse emphasizes that whoever allows him or herself to become controlled by alcohol is not a wise person, because allowing something to have control over how one acts, thinks, and speaks is never a smart decision. Christians view alcohol as a substance that can be used to have a good time, but when it is overconsumed to the point of drunkenness, then it becomes an issue. The Judeo-Christian worldview of alcohol is that it is always to be taken in moderation and never taken advantage of. The Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church both believe similarly, that it is acceptable to drink in moderation, as Jesus did in the Bible. During an interview with a local Methodist church, the head pastor stated that not only alcohol, but all things should be taken in moderation and never in excess. He also emphasized the importance of being socially aware. If somebody struggles with alcohol, Christians are called to not be stumbling blocks by drinking in front of that person. Although the Methodist, Eastern Orthodox, and Catholic churches all suggest moderation and to never drink enough to become drunk, the Church of the Nazarene and the Protestant Church both promote abstinence so that there's no chance of becoming drunk. Their beliefs are that since it is detrimental towards one's own bodily health and his or her frame of mind, it needs to be avoided at all costs. Alcohol is a double-edged sword that should always be consumed and used cautiously. Alcohol can also have an effect on people financially to some degree. The more people drink, the more expensive it becomes. The cost of alcohol increases as the alcoholic person builds tolerance to the drug in his or her system. This requires a person to take an even greater amount of alcohol in order to feel the same effects. The top 10% of alcoholic drinkers in the U.S. drink over 10 alcoholic beverages every single day. In Texas, the average price of a 24 case of beer is $21.66, which would last the heaviest of drinkers roughly 2.5 days. Throughout 1 year, these drinkers would go through 146 cases, which is equivalent to over $3,000. Putting that amount into perspective, in 2017, the average annual salary for people ages 25 to 34 in America was merely $43,056. That $3,000 is now nearly 10% of the average salary for U.S. workers. Some better uses for that money could have included rent, food, investments, college funds, and many other options that are far more beneficial. The people addicted to the drink are almost never the only ones affected. The addiction puts a strain on their relationships with friends, families, and other loved ones. Of all married couples who get into physical altercations, around 60 to 70% of the time alcohol is being abused. Alcohol can cause a gap between its consumers and the people they love. Alcoholism in the context of marriage can be extremely damaging to not only the drinker, but his or her spouse as well. Compulsive caretaking can often grow within the spouse, along with the deteriorating self-care of the drinker. They become addicted to taking care of their spouse because they are incapable of taking care of themselves properly, forcing the duty upon their significant other. This can cause the husband or wife not addicted to alcohol to feel a great burden of stress or a sense of loneliness. There are many care centers and facilities where people who suffer from alcohol abuse can be treated and eventually free from their addiction. One option is Alcoholics Anonymous, or AA, an international fellowship of men and women who have or had a drinking problem. They meet regularly and hold each other accountable for their actions by going through a 12-step process, which has a success rate of about 8 to 12%. Another option is medication to help lower the desire and prevent relapse for an addictive substance. Yet another option is checking into rehab for 30, 60, or even 90 days. These facilities help break down addictions until there is no longer a desire for them. And the last option is counseling. In counseling, professional therapists help break down addictions mentally through a series of questions and conversations over many sessions. Any of these options are a great choice to better help those on their road to recovery and health. Those who struggle with alcoholism or any other addiction must find help immediately before they hurt themselves or others. In conclusion, the statistics shown previously prove that alcohol may be too dangerous for one's own good. People can be irresponsible and careless when it comes to drinking alcohol. But maybe that shouldn't ruin it for those who choose to drink responsibly and in moderation. There is nothing inherently wrong with drinking alcohol moderately and in the appropriate occasions. Those who struggle with alcohol need to seek immediate attention, and their close friends and families need to be there to help and support them through their tribulations. Alcohol is a strong substance, a drug that anyone can become addicted to, even the strongest of people. No one is immune to addiction itself, even if it isn't in the form of alcohol. In everything that humans do, it should be to glorify the Almighty God, especially when it comes to consuming alcohol. Thank you. And any questions?